You've been doing what everyone recommends. You walk most days of the week, some mornings before work, some evenings after dinner, sometimes on a treadmill while watching a show. Your watch congratulates you. 7,000 steps, 9,000 steps, even 12,000 on good days. You feel consistent. You feel disciplined. You feel like you're finally taking control of your health. But after a few months, something strange happens. Your stamina improves slightly, yet the mirror barely changes. Your waistline looks almost identical. The number on the scale drifts down for a week, then comes back. By mid-afternoon, you still feel that familiar drop in energy, and a snack suddenly feels necessary. You didn't quit. You didn't skip days. Still, the result you expected never quite arrives. Eventually, a quiet thought appears. Maybe walking just doesn't burn fat. If we could pause time and look inside your metabolism right now, would it look calm or quietly strained? Not broken, not failing. Just operating under a constant demand to manage incoming fuel. Because here is the uncomfortable reality. Your body can be active while still refusing to release stored energy. Most people assume walking is gentle enough that it naturally burns body fat. It seems logical. You move your body, you expend calories, and fat should supply the energy. But physiologists see something different. They see a system governed not primarily by motion, but by biochemical permission. The body doesn't burn fat simply because you are moving. It burns fat only when the hormonal environment allows access to it. Stay with me, because what has to happen before fat burning begins is rarely explained clearly. Walking is not ineffective, but walking alone is not the switch. There is a step that comes before the step, a biological change that must occur first. Until that shift happens, your body will continue relying on quicker fuel sources, no matter how faithfully you walk. And once you understand that, the confusion you've been feeling starts to make sense. You might think the main character in this story is your belly fat, the soft tissue around your waist that seems stubborn and unmoved by effort. But fat itself is not the decision maker. It is storage. It waits for instructions. The true main character is the insulin signaling system, and even deeper than that, your body's metabolic flexibility. Imagine your fat cells as a storage room filled with fuel. The door to that room is locked and unlocked by hormones. Insulin is one of the primary keys. When insulin levels are elevated, the door stays closed. When insulin falls to a lower baseline, the door can open and stored fat can be released into circulation as usable energy. Your body is constantly choosing between two primary fuel modes. One is glucose mode, where it relies mainly on carbohydrates circulating in the bloodstream or stored as glycogen. The other is fat oxidation mode, where it draws from stored fat and converts fatty acids into energy inside the mitochondria of your cells. Walking by itself does not decide which mode you are in. Hormonal signals decide that first. When insulin is high, your body prioritizes burning glucose. Even if you are walking, even if you are sweating lightly, the muscles will use readily available sugar before accessing fat. Walking in that state still burns calories, but it does not necessarily shift you into meaningful fat loss. On the other hand, when insulin is lower and the body senses stable blood sugar, lipolysis begins. Fat cells release fatty acids into the bloodstream, and now walking can amplify fat oxidation. This is why two people can walk the same distance and experience very different outcomes. One may be metabolically flexible, able to switch between fuels smoothly. The other may be stuck in near-constant glucose mode, especially if meals and snacks keep insulin elevated for most of the day. In that case, walking feels healthy but never quite reaches the fat-burning threshold. The real question is not how many steps you take. The real question is whether your internal fuel system has shifted. Because until that switch happens, walking is simply movement layered on top of a locked storage room. Here are a few numbers to bring perspective, not alarm. After a typical mixed meal, insulin levels can rise 3 to 5 times above baseline. Many adults now spend much of their day in a semi-fed metabolic state, especially when snacks or sweet drinks appear every few hours. Surveys suggest a large portion of adults carry higher fasting insulin than expected, even before blood sugar shows a problem. In controlled metabolic studies, fat oxidation during steady walking nearly doubles once insulin drops to a lower resting range. Now imagine what happens the moment you begin walking. During the first 2 minutes, your muscles reach for the fastest available energy. Stored glycogen breaks down, and circulating glucose is used immediately. Your heart rate increases slightly, breathing quickens, and the nervous system prepares for activity. Fat is not yet the main contributor. The body always chooses convenience first. Around 3 to 10 minutes, a shift starts quietly. As muscles keep contracting, circulating glucose begins to decline. Insulin gradually falls, and stress hormones like catecholamines rise just enough to signal energy release. Lipolysis, the process of freeing fatty acids from fat cells, begins in the background. You may not notice anything dramatic, but internally the fuel mixture is changing. Between 10 and 30 minutes, training truly begins. Mitochondria increase their oxidation of fatty acids, and muscles begin relying more on fat for steady energy. Breathing settles into rhythm, and effort feels smoother rather than harder. This is the point many people unintentionally interrupt. They stop at 12 minutes, or head back inside once the walk finally feels comfortable. They completed the walk, yet ended it just as the body began accessing stored fuel. The difference between activity and fat-burning adaptation often lies in staying long enough for this metabolic transition to occur. Walking doesn't just burn calories, it changes fuel selection. Beneath the surface, every step is a signal to enzymes and cellular pathways that decide which substrate your body prefers. When movement continues long enough, AMPK activity increases inside muscle cells. This enzyme senses energy demand and encourages the use of stored fuel. Mitochondria receive the message to become more efficient at oxidizing fatty acids rather than relying exclusively on glucose. Over time, this improves insulin sensitivity, meaning the body no longer needs as much insulin to manage the same amount of carbohydrate. But this deeper adaptation only happens when the hormonal environment cooperates. If insulin remains elevated because of frequent eating, sugary beverages, or constant grazing, the biochemical door to fat stores stays mostly closed. The muscles will continue to use circulating glucose. Walking in that context still supports cardiovascular health, but it does not automatically translate into meaningful fat reduction. Now here's the moment most people miss: the timing of the walk. Consider the early morning before breakfast. In this state, insulin is naturally lower and liver glycogen is partially depleted from the overnight fast. Lipolysis is already active at a mild baseline. When you begin walking during this window, the shift toward fat oxidation happens faster because the body does not have excess circulating glucose demanding priority. The same 20 minutes can produce a different metabolic response, simply because the internal environment has changed. This does not mean you must always walk fasted, nor does it mean eating is the enemy. It means that fuel availability shapes fuel choice. Walking after long periods of sitting or after emotional stress can also reset the system by lowering cortisol and improving glucose handling. The key insight is that walking is not an isolated act. It interacts with the hormonal state you bring into it. When that state supports flexibility, walking becomes a powerful amplifier of fat use rather than just a mild calorie burn. Over the following weeks, the changes become measurable, though not always dramatic at first glance. Clinicians rarely focus only on body weight. They observe waist circumference, fasting insulin, resting heart rate, and how quickly your pulse settles after activity. After 8 to 12 weeks of consistent walking performed in a supportive metabolic state, waist measurements often begin to decline even when the scale moves slowly. The body composition shifts before the weight does. Fasting insulin gradually lowers as cells respond more efficiently to carbohydrates. You may notice something subtle. Afternoons feel steadier. The urgent need for snacks softens. Hunger becomes predictable rather than sudden. Energy lasts longer between meals because your body has regained the ability to access stored fuel when blood sugar dips slightly. That change alone alters eating behavior without strict dieting. Resting heart rate can decrease as well, reflecting improved autonomic balance. You recover faster after climbing stairs. Sleep often deepens because the nervous system spends less time in a reactive state. None of these changes come from walking burning enormous calories. They come from walking repeatedly, teaching the body how to switch fuels smoothly. This is why some people finally see belly fat reduce, even though they never walked faster than a comfortable pace. The difference was not intensity. The difference was adaptation. The body relearned metabolic flexibility. Instead of demanding frequent external fuel, it began using internal reserves during quiet movement. When that ability returns, walking stops being merely an activity and becomes a daily metabolic training session that works gently but persistently. Researchers have uncovered several surprises that challenge common expectations. First, short walks taken after meals can improve glucose control more effectively than occasional intense workouts. The muscles immediately absorb circulating sugar, lowering the need for large insulin responses. Over time, this reduces metabolic strain even though the activity feels easy. Second, walking in a lower insulin state, such as earlier in the day or several hours after eating, increases fat oxidation without requiring running or exhausting effort. The body prefers fat when it is not busy processing incoming carbohydrates. The same pace can lead to a different fuel outcome depending on timing. Third, moderate intensity often works better for fat use than pushing hard, especially for individuals with chronically elevated insulin. High-intensity exercise raises stress hormones sharply, which can temporarily increase glucose release and delay fat reliance. A calmer, sustained pace provides a clearer metabolic signal. Fourth, long walks combined with frequent snacking can cancel much of the fat-burning effect. Each snack raises insulin again, shifting the body back toward glucose use. The issue is not the walking itself, but the hormonal interruption. For safety, always respect your body's signals. If you feel dizzy, weak, or shaky, pause and hydrate, and consider a small, balanced snack. People with diabetes should monitor how they feel and avoid prolonged fasting without guidance. The goal is regulation, not deprivation. Walking should support stability, not create stress. When approached gently and consistently, it becomes a supportive practice rather than a strain on the system. At the beginning, we asked whether your metabolism would look calm or quietly strained. Now you can see why the answer depends less on how far you walk and more on the conditions inside your body while you walk. Movement alone does not unlock stored energy. The hormonal environment decides whether that energy is accessible. Walking is not a fat-burning switch by itself. It is a signal that works only after metabolic permission exists. When insulin remains elevated throughout the day, your body continues to rely on incoming fuel. But when insulin lowers and flexibility returns, even a gentle walk becomes meaningful. The same action produces a completely different internal response. Your body adapts to what you repeatedly ask. If you repeatedly ask it to process constant fuel intake, it becomes efficient at storing and conserving. If you repeatedly allow small periods where stored energy is needed, it relearns how to release and use it. Walking becomes the practice that reinforces this adaptation, not by force, but by repetition. So the key idea is simple. Walking burns fat only after the metabolic shift occurs. Encourage that shift through timing, consistency, and patience, and the walk finally matches the expectation you once had for it. What surprised you most? Share when you usually walk and how it feels during the day. In the next video, we'll look at the specific minute during a walk when your body transitions from burning sugar to burning fat, and how to reach that point more reliably without exercising harder.